Consider the scenario where we require $1 million to be content. If we consider the poverty of humanity and the tiny number of millionaires, we might draw the conclusion that happiness is in short supply. If it costs 7 figures in a bank account, let's imagine that we have a strong desire to be happy, and that we will remain unsatisfied as long as we don't achieve this mental state. We are $900,000 in debt, and we take into the account of the standard of happiness we established for ourselves. Being in debt is uncomfortable because it puts a heavy burden on your shoulders and implies that we are in a condition of owing someone or something, which is what we want to do in this situation. This obligation is only repaid if we succeed in getting what we seek. If what we need is scarce, it's challenging to get and easy to lose because everyone wants it. Thus, according to our observations, happiness is in short supply. This video explores the advantages of being content with little, how this results in a more carefree life, and how a minimalist perspective may help us feel abundance rather than lack. Welcome to the Financial Flow. Please like and subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay up on our latest videos. We have to work hard to find happiness when it is scarce. Our own definition of happiness may include having material stuff, money, a high social status, a nearly perfect relationship, or a combination of all these things. Imagine working non-stop to satisfy these demands while feeling a persistent, nagging sense of discontent. Consider how fervently we grasp onto our holy grail after we have it, since to lose it would imply that our happiness would stop. What a difficult existence that would be. It gets harder to be content the more explicit our requirements for happiness are. Particularly, when we've made our happiness reliant on unreliable external factors, even the slightest alterations can jeopardize our sense of security. An illustration of this would be someone who aspires to live a flawless life. All conditions must be met for there to be satisfaction. However, if even one of them is imperfect, the person's happiness crumbles like a house of cards. We'll feel abundance more to the extent that we have less needs from the world. We have more than enough if there is abundance, but how much is enough? Over time, the concept of what is sufficient tends to evolve. For instance, when we're still in college, having enough money to eat and attend parties usually suffices. But once our professions have evolved, it's possible that we won't be happy with incomes that far exceed those of the majority of students. The good news is that we can alter how we define enough, and the easier it is for us to be satisfied, the less we need to have enough. We are also less concerned about the cyclical nature of the outside world, since abundant resources are less susceptible to environmental change. Imagine someone who has the necessities like clothing, food, housing, and occasionally a few people to chat with, and is content and fulfilled. Since there are many items available, it is simple to satisfy this person. Therefore, our position gets stronger the less we need. We are unable to completely eliminate desire though. Being a human means having needs, but since we have the ability to control our impulses, we spend less time in both the worlds of prosperity and scarcity. Here are a few strategies for using our desires to move from scarcity to abundance. Number 1. The power of moderation. Epicurus distinguished between 3 categories of desire in his philosophy: natural and necessary, natural and needless, and vain desires. According to Epicurus, we should avoid the latter, which are superfluous and impossible to fulfill, and instead concentrate on the first, which are necessary and simple to satisfy. This also leaves a significant gray area of wants and requirements that, while plentiful and so simple to fulfill in the modern world, are not essential for pleasure. We may say that these joys are plentiful when we consider the amount of activities that can divert our attention. However, we frequently overindulge in them. Now, the issue is that overindulgence results in unhappiness despite wealth, since we need more and more to be pleased as our senses progressively grow less sensitive and require higher levels of stimulation. Furthermore, we will feel less abundance the more we need. If we carefully considered our requirements, we might decide against interacting with them in ways that limit our control. In order to tame our passions and prevent them from controlling us, the Stoics suggested the virtue of moderation. Modesty and restraint are components of moderation. If we are able to cultivate these characteristics, then joys that are in great quantity won't overpower us, but rather serve us just when we want them to, maintaining their characteristic of being both great and plentiful. Number 2. Being thankful for what we have. People frequently concentrate more on what they want than what they already have, but in doing so, we trade away potential sources of contentment for unmet cravings and the suffering they bring. Our possessions are a very accessible source of joy. Is there anything more accessible than what we currently possess? Is there anything more readily accessible than what we already have? We must make the effort to hunt for something else, because when we don't appreciate what we already have, we will get unhappy. Happiness, however, will be a bargain if we shift our attention from what we need to what we do have. The worth of what we have rises when we are thankful for it. For instance, many people consider their homes to be inadequate because they are too small, too old, or too unsightly. However, they could also find a silver lining. They had a roof over their heads, they lived modestly but well. And getting old doesn't always indicate that a place is unfit for habitation. Even if bigger, more modern, and better looking homes are available, their current residences nevertheless meet their most fundamental requirement: shelter. Many people live in subpar conditions, or perhaps without houses. Any home is a blessing, and something for which to be grateful when compared to them. The worth of the same house rises when we change our perspective from dissatisfaction to thankfulness. We now value and adore what we formerly devalued. Therefore, being grateful is not only a free ticket to happiness, but also a means to save money. We would have eventually achieved the same amount of satisfaction had we fulfilled our desire for a new home, but we would have paid dearly for it. Number 3. Thinking about the cost of our requirements. Our needs have a cost. In general, cheap is what is plentiful, while expensive is what is limited. And buying something inexpensive is simpler than buying something expensive. But even so, our context affects the level of difficulty. A pricey watch, for instance, may be easy to get for someone who is wealthy, but may take a poor person years to save up for. Even if the watch's cost is unchanged, wealthier people may afford it more affordably than poor people. So it makes sense to think about how much our wants will actually cost us while making decisions. We should always question yourself: what amount of life will I exchange for this? Whenever we have a desire, how much time will I need to put into this purchase? How much of an impact does this work have on my health? Things can be deemed inexpensive if they only require a tiny quantity of life. Products that demand a lot of life can be thought of as pricey. We enjoy abundance if we concentrate on the demands that are affordable and simple to meet. This abundance is either predicated on having an abundance of resources or only needing a few basic necessities of life. If we have to tread carefully to get one, getting a pricey mortgage might not be the best decision. Number 4. Staying out of long-term debt. Being in debt may be extremely stressful because it binds us to the need to pay off what we owe. Although we usually only think of debt as being related to money, our wishes can also result in debt to the mind, one of the most annoying, nagging, and demanding creditors we can imagine. So how does a creditor think? So we are immediately in debt whenever we recognize that a desire arises within us. We went from being in debt-free bliss, where we owe no one anything because we have no wants to satisfy, to being in debt. If we don't give in to this desire, the mind keeps pounding on door like a debt creditor. This is inevitable to some extent. When we become completely consumed with long-term cravings that we must satiate in order to feel satisfied, real troubles arise. By doing this, we place a heavy load on ourselves, a sensation of want that only disappears when this desire is satisfied, leaving us feeling lacking for a very long period. We might wish to concentrate on finding delight in more immediately accessible things rather than allowing our happiness depend on achieving aspirations and wants in the future. especially those that are taking a long time to achieve. Enjoying the present does not exclude having long-term objectives. Rather, it just means that we value the little things. With what is plentiful and very little, we can create satisfaction. Two strategies exist for generating abundance. The first is through acquiring more of what we want, yet doing so makes us more reliant on events outside of our control. The second method involves placing a limit on our aspirations in order to increase the satisfaction we derive from the things that are currently in our lives. The world seems to be more bountiful the less we want from it. Therefore, the more you have, the less you want. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Have a good one.